dance training, you think it's all about technique, but that's really just the foundation. So you get to a point where you know the choreography in your muscle memory, and you feel the music in your body, and you're dancing in this other space when you're actually dancing. If you're lucky enough to get to the point where you're completely out of your mind, because you have everything you need in your body when you're dancing, and you can just flow. And those are the God moments, when that happens. That's what dancers live for.
Yeah.
They live for those moments.
Yeah. And Gina has actually interviewed quite an amazing group of people, probably obtained like mastery in their field. So in your interviews with these people, would you see that their common denominator with a similarity on how they approach the creative process, and then do any of them actually talk about these like zone states that I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, and people who are at a level of mastery, as these individuals are, that I've had the privilege and honor of interviewing, are already tapped into that infinite source, because they're very prolific, writing a book or two a year, writing research papers, being published in journals, touring, speaking. They don't ever run out of energy or a message to impart. I don't mean to say that they don't physically get fatigued, but the source of creativity, it seems to me, it keeps evolving. And that's the one thing I admire about people like David Hawkins, Joe Sanko, Gene Houston, is that every time I think I have them figured out, they're on to the next iteration of who they are. They're evolving and refining themselves and regenerating themselves. And that's so inspiring, because that's what life's about. It's about always pushing your envelope a little bit and learning more and growing more. Even as you're serving, you're still, in some ways, growing personally through it all. And the other thing I've noticed about people who are at a level of mastery is that they all have a great sense of humor. They take life so lightly, the things that happen. And like I remember one time when I was getting ready to interview Joan Borsenko, I was at a conference, and she came into the hall, and there were probably, 800 people. And she came in and she realized that her PowerPoint was not working. And she left her notes in her hotel room, and she wasn't able to get there in time, or she wasn't able to sell someone to bring them to her. So she basically winged a 2.5-hour lecture with no notes and no PowerPoint. And she acknowledged it at the beginning. She said, this is what happened to me, ha ha ha. And maybe inside she was, because, I think that Joan is very professional and takes her work very seriously on some level. But on another level, she's able to just let it all go and say, okay, that's what happened. All right.
Pure acceptance.
Yeah.
Wow, it's been such a beautiful day so far. Sun, clouds.
Want to talk about Pittsburgh?
Yeah, for sure. So, you had mentioned before that there's something, when people come to Pittsburgh, they feel a certain energy. Can you talk about that more?
I can talk about it from my personal experience of having grown up here, and then I moved away, and then I was pulled back, and there's actually a term called boomerangs. I live here because there is something in the water, in the air, in the ethers around Pittsburgh that draws people back. It's statistically proven that people who once lived here return here.
Wow.
So that's, and I'm a testimony to that as well. I've done event planning over the years, and I've brought people here, energy healers, teachers, and so forth, pastors, different people that have come through the area, and they do feel a certain vibe here that has to do with spiritual essence that exists here. I like to call it, as I said to you on the phone, I like to call it the city of alchemy, because we have this history of the alchemical process through the Industrial Revolution. Pittsburgh was a world leader in steel and metallurgy, and a lot of went on to the denouement after the 60s, the 70s. Pittsburgh went on a downslide, and then we entered what's called, what the city officials called a renaissance. Renaissance 1 and Renaissance 2 during the 70s and 80s and 90s. And we had to reinvent ourselves. So we went through an alchemical process through those periods of time where we were needing to reinvent ourselves away from the city of smog. And people think of Pittsburgh still, and they think you're going to get black lung if you live in Pittsburgh, but you can see that
it's not. I don't
case.
see any evidence of that.
No.
I was actually surprised because that was probably my own misconception of Pittsburgh being a steel city, industrial, probably polluted. All I knew so much about it was the steel and maybe the sports teams.
Right. Right.
But obviously it's like one of the most greenest places I've ever encountered in all my travels.
So I feel that we're moving from steel to gold. Gold meaning a golden moment in time where a lot is happening here in terms of the spiritual community. And I use that term with some reticence because I think we're just a community.
Just a community, right?
We're all spiritual. If we admit it to ourselves, we realize that. But there's a lot of great things happening here. And as I showed you the point, that it's a blessed, sacred place because it's one of the only two places on the planet that the three rivers come together.
Yes. Yeah, I'll definitely show you guys a picture. It's right behind this.
Yeah, they don't have the fountain on today, but it's still magnificent. Because the water holds so much energy, so much flow, as you would say.
Yep.
And the tributaries start very north of the continent and go all the way down to the Gulf through here. So we're connected.
So this is one of only two places where the rivers, three rivers converge.
Right. Right. And the other is in India. And I can't think of the third river, but it's the Yamuna, the Ganges, and there's a third river. And the symbology is that it goes up to heaven. The river goes up to heaven. And we kind of feel that way about our fountain. The fountain reaches up to heaven here in Pittsburgh. But yeah, we had Don Alejandro, my company Epiphany Works, brought him a couple of years ago on 12/12/07, and he is, I call him the Dalai Lama of the Mayans because he's one of the senior teachers with the Mayans, and he came with Flor de Mayo, who is one of 13 indigenous grandmothers. If you've heard about the Council of International Grandmothers, there's 13 grandmothers from different cultures around the world, and their message is to spread peace. That's really all their message is. So Flor de Mayo came here with Don Alejandro, who is her teacher, and the same thing happened. He came to the point, he did a blessing, he went to the Pitt campus, we did numerous things that week, and he spoke about the prophecies of Pittsburgh in connection to the Mayan prophecies. And I'm not an expert on that, so I could defer to others who I know who are more expert in that topic, or refer your listeners here to material that they can read about that specifically, because it's been written about a lot lately. But suffice to say that Pittsburgh has a place in the spiritual renaissance of the planet. I mean, it's that huge, and we're so humble here and small, but great things are happening here, even with the G20. And we have a lot of support from the White House with President Obama.
So did they come here to do that?
Yeah, the G20 was held here in Pittsburgh last year.
Amazing.
And of course, President Obama was here, and the senior economic advisors, and Michelle Obama was here at Kappa, one of the creative arts schools right here in the city, speaking to young adults and school children. And I hope they come back. And actually, Art Rooney Sr., who is one of the Steelers organization, the Pittsburgh Steelers, yay, go Steelers! He is now an ambassador to Ireland.